Welcome back, Pause Menu Society, the Derek Lamont Experience. You know what it is. Part of the team. The team will be here later because we got a lot to cover. This is just a flash episode. Be doing these from here. Just, whenever. So we have quite a few things to talk about on the regular show. We also have the Grand Theft Auto 6 extended look to cover. So this was a topic that was originally part of the show, but I decided to cut it. So I'm going to be tackling this on my own. So um, we have this situation that occurred last week when a player by the name of Daquan Wright was cut from the Browns 53-man roster at the end of the training camp in the preseason. As an NFL club, you have to get your team down to a 53-man roster. Daquan Wright did not make the cut. So um, once that happens, you might go to the practice squad, or in this situation, he would be a free agency. You have to clear waivers. So Wright cleared waivers. Nobody else picked him up. So then he proceeded to enroll at LSU. Now, not enroll for classes. He went back to college to play college football. Now, the interesting part about this was Daquan Wright played for Ole Miss first. Well, who was the coach at Ole Miss until about December of last year? Oh, that's right. It was Lane Kiffin, right? Um, and then who ended up taking the job at LSU? That was Lane Kiffin. So there's been a lot of speculation. Apparently, Lane Kiffin told, because they brought in 3 guys who did not make NFL rosters to the LSU football program. Lane Kiffin apparently was telling these kids, hey, if you get cut, or he told these kids to sue the NCAA for their eligibility. So anybody who was part of the class of 2022, there's this whole eligibility situation. So what is happening following meetings with presidents, chancellors, and athletic directors of the Southeastern Conference, and there's more. The SEC will enforce the following policy. Any SEC institution is not permitted to have an athlete on its roster who was, number one, previously declared for the NFL, NBA, or WNBA draft and did not appropriately withdraw. Number two, signed a contract with an NFL or other professional football league, NBA, G League, or WNBA, or affiliate team. Or number three, been listed on an NFL or other professional football league, NBA, G League, or WNBA, or affiliate roster. The commissioner is authorized to enforce expectation with penalties against member institutions. So these would be the penalties from the SEC. Half-season suspension for head coaches, SEC voting privileges revoked on business matters for the school in violation of the rule, a hefty fine, 50% of that sport's annual operating budget, which we know for SEC schools has got to be pretty fucking high. And then the league retains the right to levy other penalties by Greg Sankey and or SEC presidents and chancellors if necessary. This is a crazy, crazy situation. I've been telling people for years that Lane Kiffin is not somebody you can trust. He just isn't. He's a swarmy, slimy, just a slimy all around guy. You have I understand Al Davis's importance to the NFL and the merger in particular. But I read Pete Rozell's book, biography of Pete Rozell, and I believe that Al Davis thought that he should have been the commissioner of the NFL, and the other owners didn't see it that way. But whatever. I understand. Al Davis is very important to football. However, just like we see with Jerry Jones, he's getting up there in years, and these guys still think that you should be able to run the team a certain way. Jerry Jones still operates as the general manager of his football team. I believe for a while, Al Davis did the same with the Raiders. You start to lose part of your facilities as you get older, and you still think football works one way and it completely does not. So while I understand Al Davis himself was quite the problem for the Oakland Raiders, Los Angeles Raiders, and he passed away before they became the Las Vegas Raiders, he was part of the problem. However, Al Davis told people about Lane Kiffin years ago and nobody listened. And then the Lane Kiffin, Tennessee situation happened. The minute Pete Carroll bolted for the Seahawks job in NFL, Lane Kiffin took the USC job. Now, that is not something that's not like some, wow, this is crazy. I can't believe you did this. This happens in college football every year. There's a top 20 program that becomes available and some young hot coaching candidate gets that job, right? Urban Meyer went from Bowling Green to Utah and then plateaued Utah into the University of Florida. and then he plateaued. He took a year, I think a year and a half, maybe 2 years off, and then plateaued that into the Ohio State University. And then he went from the Ohio State University to the Jacksonville Jaguars of the NFL and did not even last a full season. Steve Spurrier, famously, University of Florida. Like, Spurrier leaving Florida is how Urban Meyer got there. I forgot who was in there in the interim, but it didn't work out. And then they eventually went and got Urban Meyer. But Steve Spurrier left the Florida Gators after so many years of success and took the former Washington Redskins job, and that didn't work out. Then he went to the University of South Carolina. Kyle Whittingham. Whittingham led Utah for years. Whittingham took over when Urban Meyer took the Florida job. That's how long Kyle Whittingham was at the University of Utah, right? And then we all thought he was retiring, and then the Michigan head job becomes open because, remember, Jim Harbaugh goes back to the NFL. Sharon Moore gets the job. Sharon Moore has an extramarital affair and said some things to the woman he's having an affair with, who happened to be a member of the Michigan football program to a certain extent. She was like a liaison or something like that. Sharon Moore gets fired. Kyle Whittingham takes over. So it's not that it's not crazy for a head coach to take another job, but the way that Lane Kiffin lied to the people in Knoxville about how pumped he was, and he might have been pumped to get the Tennessee job, but I remember the visuals of kids burning mattresses in the dorm because Lane continuously lied to them about what he wanted for the University of Tennessee and how he felt about being the head coach at the University of Tennessee. Lane, then the USC job, well, he failed there and he got let go. And then Nick Saban was like, hey, come down here. Come down here to Tuscaloosa. I want you to be my offensive coordinator. I want you to help me out. And Lane was great, but consider the resources. It's Alabama, and this is where they're at their peak, where they're winning the national championship. Like so place I used to work, I was scheduling something for a client and they lived in Alabama. And so I start throwing out dates. I was like, we have this. And he's like, you know what? We better not go with that date because we know Bama's going to be playing for the national championship. Like, they expected to be playing for the Natty every single year. While Lane was there, he obviously helped the Alabama offense. Lane gets the head coaching job at FAU and thinks that he can hang around. And Saban's like, no, you're not fucking coaching a playoff game and you took another head coaching job. Get the fuck out of here. So when Lane took the LSU job, it was so crazy to hear that Saban was supporting this when you told the guy to get the fuck out of your football facilities. Kirk Herbstreit was supporting this and other members of the College Game Day panel. Well, then you come to find out that they all share the same agent that Lane Kiffin has. So I was like, okay, so now I know why you're all acting like there's nothing wrong with this. Everybody's like, well, what's the big deal? It's not that big of a deal. Yeah, it is. You told us you would have an answer for us at the conclusion of the Egg Bowl, which takes place the morning after Thanksgiving. Nothing. They asked him after the game. Lane says nothing. He's leading Ole Miss to their best season in many, many years. Many years. This is a playoff team, and you want to leave because Brian Kelly sold the people in LSU a fake Southern accent and said that it was better. LSU was a better job for him than Notre Dame because he would have unlimited resources at LSU that he would not have at Notre Dame. Okay, football in the South is a bit different. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say they don't play real football up north in Indiana and Ohio and stuff like that because that would be a fucking lie. But you know what Notre Dame has that LSU doesn't have? And it's the reason Notre Dame will not join a conference. Notre Dame has an exclusive television contract with NBC Universal. That's why if you're looking for the Notre Dame game, you can always find it on NBC. They don't want to join a conference because they don't want to give up those exclusive television rights. And considering that there's no Friends, there's no Seinfeld, there's no Mad About You, there's no ER, NBC doesn't have any of that. They cannot afford to lose Notre Dame football. So if I'm Notre Dame, that's a pretty big feather in my cap. But Brian Kelly said, you know what? That's not good enough. I can't win here. Notre Dame is one of the best football programs in the country. One of the best football programs in the country. So that was very strange. So Brian Kelly leaves South Bend, Indiana, and he goes to LSU, and he gives him this fake Southern accent, which I thought was absolutely fucking insane. Like, I was like, you don't sound like that because I've heard you in many of interviews, and this is absolutely crazy. But be that as it may, Who cares? So Brian Kelly absolutely fucking failed at LSU. Now, he had a Heisman Trophy winner. He had winning seasons, but it just wasn't good enough. Remember, Ed Orgeron won the national championship undefeated. Joe Burrow won the Heisman in 2019. That's 7 years ago. Ed Orgeron was gone from LSU like 2 seasons later. Maybe one, but no more than 2. So we sit around, and then Lane, your team is in position to play in a playoff game. Ole Miss still went through the playoffs very well, despite Lane Kiffin taking the job. And then people are like, well, what's your problem with this? He should not. If you're going to take the job, you need to let the AD know, the chancellor, the president of the university, whoever. You have to let them know, because they have to begin their coaching search. Because remember, Virginia Tech got rid of their coach. Penn State got rid of their coach. A lot of coaches got extensions last year because of what was happening. Penn State is one of the top 15 jobs in college football. And they had to tell James Franklin, go away. And then James Franklin found his way down to Blacksburg and took the Virginia Tech job. Eli Drinkwitz got an extension last year, and Mizzou was an 8-4 football team. We should have won 9 games at least. Had we won our bowl game, which we should have, he'd have had another 9-win season. But Drink got an extension because Penn State definitely called to check on Drink's interest in the Penn State job. Do you see where I'm going? So while all this is going, this is a result of Brian Kelly getting fired, James Franklin getting fired, and then Lane Kiffin being the asshole that he is. So Lane's sitting still in the Ole Miss football facilities, and everybody's like, well, it's not that big a deal. Yes, it is, because he can poach coaches and he can poach players. He should have been gone. So he's sitting there watching a playoff game with Pete Golding, who is now the head coach at Ole Miss, and Lane made some stupid comment, and Pete was like, you know what? Why the fuck are you even here? This is not your office anymore. Get the fuck out of here. Lane Kiffin is a terrible person. He's one of God's worst creations, to be completely honest with you. And I said that, and everybody said I was such a hater. Well, Lane lobbied a bunch of kids to say, you should sue the NCAA for extra eligibility. Okay. Well, they're not having it. So the Big Ten rule banning NFL players has officially passed with unanimous faculty rep approval. Here's the specific language of what's not allowed. Underclassmen who declared for the draft and did not withdraw, any football player who signed a contract with Pro Sports League, anyone who was officially on a professional roster. The SEC has backed this. Everybody, the ACC has signed on. This is what happens when you have an idiot leading this brigade and this charge. The Big Ten has also confirmed that the head coach would get suspended for half a season if they play an NFL player. Also, there'd be an institutional fine, punitive punishments as well. And this is reported by CBS. Here we are. Y'all thought that it was a joke. And everybody's like, you're so hard on Lane Kiffin. When somebody shows you who they are, the saying goes, you believe them. And Lane Kiffin has showed us who he is for many, many years. Many years, Lane Kiffin has showed us who he is. He's a swarmy, slimy son of a bitch. And maybe I'm going a little far saying he's one of the worst, human beings that God ever created. Okay, maybe that's a bit too much. I'm sorry. I apologize. But it's still Lane Kiffin. If y'all have been following football as long as I've been following football, and especially 3 teams that I care about, if all 3 of these teams win on a Saturday, I call that winning the day in the fall for me. University of Southern California Trojans, the Missouri Tigers, and the Oklahoma Sooners. Those are my teams. I have to deal with Lane Kiffin directly because Oklahoma and Mizzou play in the SEC, and then also Lane was the head coach at USC, and there was a time where he was the quarterback coach and also the offensive coordinator, if I remember correctly. It's a great coaching staff. Norm Chow, Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian, who is now the head coach at the University of Texas. There was a lot of talent in Pete Carroll's wheelhouse at USC, and that's why the Trojans were the best team in the nation for about 4 years running. Like they were automatic. But I've been dealing with Lane Kiffin as a result of this for 20 years now. 20 years. He's always been a snake oil salesman. So again, everybody's like, you're so hard on Lane. No, I'm not. He's just a terrible person. And now these kids are fucked. If they play, you see what the consequences are. And the worst thing, and this is my final point, I'm going to leave you with this. When asked in a press conference the other day, you added 3 players, 2 formerly from Ole Miss, and I forget where the third player went to school, but he didn't go to Ole Miss. When asked about this, now remember, you're adding these players at the end of NFL training camp and at fall camp for college football. So to add 3 players to your roster, 3 players have to go. When asked about the 3 players who will be losing their spot after being with their team for fall camp and workouts and weight room sessions and all that, Lane Kiffin said, that's not our burden to carry. So to the parents whose living room, maybe not you, maybe Brian Kelly or somebody, you went and sat in these kids' living rooms and told their parents you're going to take care of their sons and make them men and that they would lead the LSU tradition. And now it's not your burden to carry. But I'm too hard on Lane Kiffin, guys, apparently. I'm just way too fucking hard on Lane Kiffin. He's a terrible human being. And he has been. And I've been saying this. It just, even when he was working on the passing game, when he was the quarterback coach at USC, I was just like, Lane just has a punchable face. Lane is the type of guy who was born on third and thought he hit a triple. And if you don't know what I mean, Lane's father is the late, great Monty Kiffin. He was a defensive guru. If you want Monty Kiffin's credentials, go to the NFL YouTube channel. And I think it's Super Bowl 34, if I'm not mistaken. 36. 36. If it's 36, I'm pretty sure it's 36. Buccaneers, Raiders. And watch what the Bucs did to the Raiders. Monty Kiffin was the defensive coordinator of that Buccaneers team, and they beat the shit out the Raiders. Now, remember, one of the Raiders players, their offensive lineman, went to Tijuana and got lost for the weekend, so they had to change all the offensive line signals. John Gruden was the coach of the Raiders the season before. He knew that offense like the back of his hand because they didn't change the offense after Gruden left. So every formation they lined up in, he knew what was going to be called. Gruden and Monty Kiffin had the Buccaneers defense absolutely prepared, and they destroyed the Raiders in that Super Bowl. That was the last time the Raiders played in the Super Bowl, by the way. But Lane Kiffin was born on third and thought he hit a triple. He's a terrible person, just a terrible human being. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys. Believe in yourself first and foremost, because if you don't believe in yourself, of course, nobody else will believe in you. As always, that is my name is Derek Lamont Jackson, and that is my time. Y'all have a good one. See you around.